Okay, I'll go ahead and record to my computer. All right, there we go. Jim is recording. So, all right, make sure that you don't do anything embarrassing because this will be put on our staff development YouTube channel, which we will be expanding greatly after this evening. So, to start with, as Nicole had mentioned, if you haven't already, please see to it that you have gone to the Canvas course and gotten logged in there and accessed our materials for this evening on the digital instruction course. We mentioned making sure that your name is who you say you are in Zoom. So to do that, you open your participants window in your Zoom app, and you find yourself in participants, and you should have a more, or I think it says more options, and then you can rename yourself there. So another thing that I'd like to point out is we have some strategies that we are using tonight. I will be pointing those out. Those show up in these kind of teal bubbles. And part of the reason behind this is a lot of research shows that in order to use technology effectively, you need to use it as a learner first. And one of the most effective trainings that I was ever part of, I had a teacher come in and literally take over my classroom. And as she was working with students, she would work with the students, then turn to me and tell me what she was doing and name the strategy and like explain what she was doing with the student, and then go back to doing it. So I want to do the same thing for you. I want to be able to use these strategies and then point out what I'm doing as I'm doing it, so you have an idea of what we're talking about with these strategies. Here, one of our strategies is to use clear expectations, and these are our Zoom norms or our virtual meeting norms. As we mentioned already, making sure that your screen name is your name. You do have reaction buttons to use. If you could just do me a quick favor and find those reaction buttons and give me a thumbs up or some sort of emoji response. Oh, look at all those thumbs. Oh, got some hearts too. Oh, thank you. That is so kind. Excellent. So good. Showing us that you know where they are. We got some people who are crying, laughing at this. Thank you. I'm glad you think I'm funny. Hopefully not funny looking. So we have noticed that already most people are following the muting your microphone in the main room, so we're not dealing with background noise and not dealing with any feedback. So thank you for that. Keeping your camera on is one of our norms as well, so that we can, show that you are here, since this is contract time. It's kind of one of those legal things. And we also ask that during break time, do stay logged into Canvas so that we don't have a lot of people coming back into the waiting room. Tara is an amazing Zoom czar, but at the same time, we also don't want to overwhelm her. And last but not least, we do have a reflection guide available for you. It should be right there on the main page of the Canvas course. And if you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat box. My cohorts in the Teaching, Learning, Innovation department, Amanda, Katie, Tara, Nicole, Valerie, I think Andy's in here as well. I think Colby's here as well. Those from the TLI department, they'll be there to help field some of those questions as well. So with that, as I mentioned, that is one of our strategies, having those clear expectations up front. I do want to share with you one point, though. What we're doing right now is a little bit different from what you would have in your classrooms. We have, I think the last count I saw was 97 participants right now. So this is working more like a webinar than it would be an interactive class. So while we'll name a lot of the strategies, some of them won't be quite as practical with so many people. When we work out to our breakout sessions, those will be a little bit more applicable. Another one of our strategies tonight is to leverage your learning management system. We've already started to do that, asking that you log in. When you click on that link for the reflection guide tonight, I did set that to force a copy in your Google Drive. So if you haven't already, when you click that link, it'll ask if you want to make a copy. We do recommend that you use your K-12 Google account. So, another way to help make sure that your students are able to access what you're doing, show them what you want them to do. So, here I've got a screenshot of that front page, and you can see right there at the bottom that teacher reflection guide. That's what we're looking for. We did add another link that includes links to all of tonight's presentations, including the one you're looking at right now. You'll be able to find those on those links. Again, having easy access to your course materials, it never hurts to make it available in more than one place. So even though I've got those PowerPoint happening right in front of us, it doesn't hurt to have that available to your students as well. And the same goes for rubrics or whatever course materials you have. If you've got it embedded in your learning management system, go ahead and provide a link to it as well. Never hurts to double up. Our learning intentions tonight, we want to have two primary focuses for tonight. You're only going to listen to me for about the first 40 minutes, give or take, and then we'll move into some breakout sessions. You should have gotten in the same place where you found the link, you should have a document that looks kind of like this with the various sessions that you have available to you this evening. The purpose of this first session is to give you some time and space to reflect on how this first month of school has gone. We want to think about what's gone well and what can change. And then as we move forward into those breakout sessions, we want to give you the space and time to improve on your instructional practice with digital tools by participating in those sessions. Notice here, my strategy is I've got my explicit learning goals. Much like in your face-to-face classroom, we want to provide a very clear purpose to what we're doing and have an idea of what you need to do in order to be successful. All right, not to be your hippy-dippy Mr. Zoom guy person, but I actually do want you to try this. You should have this animated GIF of this polygon kind of expanding and contracting. And I do want you to take a moment to kind of find a little bit of a Zen place, especially with the secondary teachers. Today is the first day that you've had all of your students back face to face. And, or I'm sorry, yesterday and today are the first 2 days that you've had all of your students back face to face. And elementary teachers, you guys have just come in here as well off of basically a week and a half of students face to face, and that's a lot to deal with. With as crazy as the beginning of the year has been, and as much as you've had to learn and change and adapt in the last couple of weeks, let's take a moment to kind of find a calm place in your brain. Notice the strategy here, building personal relationships. There's a person on the other side of these Zoom screens, and we need to acknowledge that. It's hard. What we've been asked to do has been difficult. I'm not going to lie to you. I wouldn't disrespect you like that. But at the same time, we do have the task before us, and we do need to move forward. So thank you for taking a moment to breathe with us here. I know it's a little new age. Maybe it's your thing, maybe it's your not, but to have a space right now to reflect on how this first month has gone, that's our main goal for this particular session. All right, you guys ever seen story cubes? So I picked these up from, I want to say it's Books a Million, and they're super cool. They come in these little magnetic book boxes, and it's basically dice with icons on them. So I've got a couple of different sets, and after talking with a couple of other members of my team here, we came up with a few that we thought might be somewhat reflective of our first few weeks with students. So I have on the screen here, and you should have a copy of this image as well in your reflection guide. I'd like to give you 2 minutes. You've got 9 icons there: the gears, die, clock, alien face, or maybe it's a mask. I guess there are masks there too. Take 2 minutes. Choose an icon that represents how your year has gone so far and write about that. And if you're having trouble accessing the reflection guide, Nicole did just drop it into the K-12 or into the chat. And she did mention you need to be logged into your K-12 Google to access it.
Because it creates a copy in your own Google Drive.
Correct.
Jim has become a mastermind up here and figured out how to create a copy link.
Yes. It's a beautiful thing being able to force a copy into the Google Drives as opposed to having them try to figure out how to open it and then copy it for themselves. So about 30 seconds remaining, about 30 seconds, and then we will carry on. And if you are so inclined, I'd ask that you go ahead and share in the chat. If you're done already, go ahead and share in the chat. Which icon did you pick? And just like a super brief, how does that fit? I'd love to see some responses here. Got the chat window open, waiting for it to go. Cassandra, feeling a little foreign. Jeannie, time's passing. Starting to see some themes here about a clock and time. Puzzle piece, finding out how it goes together. Gears, making it all come together. It's a work in progress. I love it. Sue says comedy and tragedy. If you're not laughing, you're crying. Sometimes it's the best way to get through it, right?
I think, isn't that a Jimmy Buffett quote? If we weren't all crazy, we'd be insane. So while those are coming in, I'll tell a story. Actually, I used these story cubes with some 7th graders, and actually that very alien cube came up, and I was working with a couple of boys, and I went with the surface line. You know, here's an alien. He showed up at a farm, and so on and so forth. And this girl sitting with the group, she says, "Oh, you could go so much deeper than that." And I looked at her and said, "Hit me. What do you got?" And she said, she picks up the alien cube, and so this is a stranger. He's someone who's not familiar with the area. And I was like, write that story. I want to hear that. So I think it's kind of cool to see that coming up in the chat as well. So, all right. Thank you so much for sharing. Notice my effective digital instruction strategy there, breaking it up so that it's not all just the Jim talking show. Give you a chance to work, give you a chance to engage with materials that have been provided in advance. All right, let's move on. So instructional guidance documents, these are also available on the front page of the Digital Instruction Canvas course. These are some of our guiding documents for how to handle these e-learning Fridays and what the expectations are. It's really important to refer back to those so that we're not running in 5,000 different directions. We'll be coming back to this in a couple of times, both during this session and during other breakout sessions. So let's talk about reflecting on resilient instruction. Notice that I'm chunking my lesson down here. So if I was in just a classroom or recording videos, I would have stopped several minutes ago and had a very short video and made this a new one. Because of our format, because we're in more of that webinar format, that's why we got to kind of keep going here. But notice that I am breaking it down into sections. Effective digital instruction strategy.
One of the things that we asked you to do when we first gave you this presentation back in late August, early September, was to plan your logistics and design your instruction around some guiding questions, what you want to know, what method you're going to use to um, complete those learning tasks, what resources and tools will serve your purpose, and which has become extremely relevant in the past week, a plan that allows you to move from yellow to green to red seamlessly. We provided those templates for you back in September. I believe they're still available in the course. You might have to look for them a little bit, but I know they're in there. Strategy templates available, easy to fill in. When we asked you to choose strategies, we gave you this kind of rainbow image here and asked you to pick these high impact strategies. And three that we pointed out were interactive video, recorded worked examples, and spaced versus mass practice. And if you, just a little refresher on this whole thing about effect size, if you're looking at that rainbow, where it says 0 between the red and the yellow, that 0 represents 1 year of growth for the average student going through regular tier 1 normal instruction, following the curriculum, hitting all your standards, doing everything that you know you need to do as a teacher. To move forward, where it says like 0.2, that's 2/10 of a year beyond a normal year's growth. At the end of the green there, it says 0.4. That's 4/10 or almost 50% more learning that happens over the course of 1 year. So we're looking to use strategies that get into that green and blue section, especially since we're dealing with students who basically missed a half a year of instruction. How do you catch them up? How do you make up that missed time, even though everybody's in that boat? Well, you use these really high impact strategies. So um, I went ahead and decided to blow this up and make it really big and easy for you to see. When you look at these strategies, were there any that you have used to this point? We asked during the first effective digital instruction training, we asked that you pick one or two and give them a shot. I put this on your reflection guide. Did you pick one and how did it go? So that one's kind of a deeper question. Got a couple of extra reflection questions with that as well. We'll go ahead and give about 4 minutes on this one. Actually, I'm going to back that up, about 3 minutes. All right, given that these questions are available for you on the presentation or on your reflection guide, I am going to back this up so you can see, just in case that image on the reflection guide itself might be a little on the small side. About 2 more minutes. With about another minute to go, I've noticed a few are already starting to share out in the chat box. If you're comfortable with sharing, please do. And I'm here. Looks like I'm seeing some I don't know what's that called, silver linings about the level 2, having a little bit smaller face-to-face classes and a chance to get to know your individual students a little bit better in that smaller environment. Sounds like one-to-one laptops are getting some positive reviews overall. All right. In the interest of time, I'll go ahead and move on forward. I did see a couple about background music. Personally, I use background music all the time. One of my favorites to play in the classroom was Bretta Iz's "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" with the ukulele. Fantastic for as soon as middle schoolers come back from lunch when they're all wired from going outside. Come in, have them listen to a little ukulele, calm them down. Is very nice. I recommend that if you haven't already. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on forward here. Notice that I did give you easy access to the course materials via Zoom or via Canvas. I also saw to it that I have a clear expectation of what I wanted you to write about, as well as keeping some private think time and some private work time during the synchronized learning. So what we're doing right now, this is synchronized learning, since everyone's doing roughly the same thing at roughly the same time. Um, actually, that's one of our next items. So once again, chunking things down, kind of set the strategies themselves aside for just a slight little moment here. We do have a couple of pieces to talk about. One is relationships, and I already saw that coming up so many times in the chat box. You may have noticed as you were coming in, Nicole and I were greeting you individually as best we could until everyone showed up at once. But we did our best to greet everyone as they came in, and we wanted to make sure to acknowledge the person, as I said, on the other side of the screen. I realize that this is going to be less in the forefront of your mind as you have students back here in level 1. But the tools that we're talking about, they work in the classroom just as well as they do in remote applications. So building those relationships, building those personal relationships in both the physical and the digital environment goes such a long way in making your classes run smoothly. Posting photos of your students and their work in your virtual classroom, especially for those distance learners, helping to connect what's on a screen to a human is going to go a long way towards helping to build that community And believe it or not, that actually can help reduce with some of the cyberbullying. I know that no middle schooler or high schooler or even elementary students, I know nobody would ever call somebody something mean over the internet. I know that would never happen. Having that personal connection can actually help reduce that. It's going to be very difficult to eliminate it entirely, but this is a way to help eliminate or help reduce those issues. I know that we mentioned having office hours, and at some of the schools, office hours sounds like are mandatory. Some of the schools, it's more on the um, uh, voluntary side. But nonetheless, we're hearing that quite a few teachers are taking advantage of using video conferencing tools such as Zoom here to meet with their students and their families. This is a really good opportunity to build those relationships. Also offering this as a communal place, helping build those relationships, even if it isn't necessarily 100% academic. You still need to acknowledge that human side. It's okay to use some of your time to help build those personal relationships from student to student as well. I saw something from Valerie pop up in the chat there. She said relationships are the foundation, whether face-to-face or remote or distance. So thanks for the validation, Valerie. Appreciate that. See, relationship. All right. So the next thing that I'd like to talk about is engagement strategies using digital tools in the physical environment. It doesn't all have to be 100% digital, but this works even if you're remote. It works. These tools work even if you are virtual or if you're face-to-face. Whiteboards and clickers, they work even if you're just in the classroom or if you're on Zoom. Hand gestures, I asked you guys to do the thumbs up a little bit ago. That worked. I saw it's kind of cool. I saw this whole gallery of faces just thumbs up all over the place. It was amazing. Um, Using your other digital tools like Kahoot or Flipgrid, those are ways to help build that kind of game type of attitude, or that the gamification of a classroom, and help bring some fun back into the place, especially after so much time apart. Helping to build a fun environment can go a long way towards building your overall classroom culture, as well as having some effective instruction. Shared documents can work in the classroom when you're face to face. It's amazing how even if they're sitting on opposite sides of the room, they can still work together without having to cause any problems with the social distancing requirements. I realize when we're level 1 here, that's a little bit harder to do. So go ahead and take advantage of those tools that you have available to you. If it worked with them from home, it'll work with them on the other side of the room. Structured partners we talked about was where you can ask one student to respond and they're pre-paired with another student. And so when student A answers, then student B has to either back them up or refute their answer. One that I added here is an engagement strategy of using random name pickers or popsicle sticks. If you just Google random name picker, there's dozens of apps out there. You just copy and paste the roster and it'll pick random names for you, or go old school and write the names on popsicle sticks. That can help engage students too, because it's seen as fair. Like my middle school students, they absolutely, future lawyers, every one of them. They were very, very concerned about whether or not things were fair. And so something about seeing a popsicle stick drawn out, to them, most of the time, they saw that as, okay, I was drawn at random. I had an equal chance as everyone else. And as long as they saw you put their stick to the side, then they viewed it as fair. So that's another strategy you can use to help build up your engagement and draw on students randomly. Okay, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention the strategy there. Flexible tools, meaning tools that work in both environments, both online and in face-to-face environments. So Okay. So remote learning versus synchronous learning versus asynchronous learning. We did have, over the last couple of weeks, we've had some questions come up about how to use these e-learning Fridays. And that's part of why that documentation came out. That's part of why those expectations were shared. And there's a couple of pieces that we need to make sure are clear when it comes to synchronous and asynchronous learning. Synchronous learning is something that you're engaged in right now. Everyone's doing pretty much the same thing at the same time. Think of it like your classes where you're face to face and you have you have your stack of study guides or whatever, and everyone gets a study guide at the same time or on the same day. That's synchronous learning. When we're working on when we're working on a Zoom, if you have everyone logging in at the same time, you're working on synchronous learning. And I think what we're finding is that in more than a couple of cases, not everybody's able to make it during those scheduled times. And I realize that that causes some issues, and that's where we get a little bit of a hang up. So a way to think of synchronous learning is the person responsible for saying when is the teacher. It's teacher-directed time management. On the other hand, asynchronous learning works more like a college online class. Yes, there's still due dates, but when the work actually gets completed is up to the individual. It is not simultaneous. They might get the materials released to them at the same time. It may be all due for everyone at the same time, but when that work actually happens, not simultaneous, totally individual. Another way to think of this is student-directed time management. Yeah, they'll have some constraints, but whether the student does that work at 2 in the morning or at 8 a.m., that's asynchronous. The thing to remember, though, is that this synchronous versus asynchronous learning, it's a continuum. It's not an all one or the other component. So especially now that we're back to level 1 in all levels, you've got some pieces that you've built online and some really fantastic things are happening. I had the good fortune to sit in on some of my freshman seminar teachers, and I got to see some of their discussions that were happening live in class. They were using the discussion boards in Zoom, and the conversation that was happening there was amazing. And that can happen starting in face-to-face classes. You can start the online discussion there, but when they go home and think of something at 10 o'clock tonight, they can still log back in and add to that discussion. That learning can still happen on their own time. Another example of a spectrum would be projects, multi-day group projects. If you think about those times when students were given a project and then it's due, 2 weeks from now, and they have to meet outside of class, that's asynchronous. That's on that spectrum between synchronous and asynchronous learning. They're still doing some of it together, but it doesn't have to be at the same time as everyone else. Assigning homework is another example. But the key takeaway here, regardless of the delivery method, regardless of when it's due, you as the teacher need to be available to support them. The technology does not replace you. You are 100% necessary. You are needed in online learning. Digital learning does not happen without an instructor. I'm going to share just a quick personal story. I know I'm running long on time, but I'm going to share just a super quick personal story. I took statistics this summer. Valerie knows where I'm going with this. I took statistics this summer for my grad school, and my instructor, God love him, he handed us a book that was literally this thick, or asked us to order a book because it was all online. And he said, here's the problems. Problem 1, 3, 5, 9, 17. Email me if you have questions. That was my statistics class all summer long. And at one point, one of my classmates said, I'm watching all the YouTube videos. I've emailed him and he gives me an explanation that kind of makes sense. And then I can move forward, but then I get stuck again. I just need a teacher. That stuck in my mind so clearly. She said, I just need a teacher. And that's what your role is here. However you deliver those assignments, face-to-face, digital, whatever, you are necessary. So let's talk about those virtual synchronous, just like what we're doing right now. So I'm going to move kind of quickly here. We've given you some response sheets, such as that digital reflection guide that has been delivered to you electronically. It is entirely up to you if you print it and complete it on paper, or if you just fill out the Google Doc. I'm not going to ask for it back, but you have some sort of reflection piece that goes with it. I've asked for hand gestures. You can use online quizzing sites like Kahoot. Here in Zoom, we mentioned this back at the beginning of the year, and you're seeing it in live action right now. Having a co-teacher with you, having someone else that can sit in with you makes a world of difference. I see my chat keeps popping up, but I know that I don't have to stop and try to deal with that because my co-pilots have my back. If you can possibly make that happen when you're doing synchronous learning, especially during live Zoom, I strongly recommend bringing in a co-pilot. We'll also be sending you out to breakout rooms. We did ask that you download the most recent version of Zoom because we learned that with the most recent version of Zoom, you, the user, can choose your own breakout rooms. And we'll talk about that more just before we send you out. Asynchronous virtual learning, though, this is going to take a lot of use on your learning management system. So using your learning management system to post regular announcements, post early and often. When students are active in your course, make sure that you're in there interacting with them as well. Varying the communication to your school's requirements, and if possible, if you can differentiate that out to the parents and students. Some parents prefer email, others text. I heard of a couple teachers using like Google Voice to send text messages to parents. That way they're not using their own personal text messages. You can do that. Using that feedback to build personalized feedback to build relationships goes a long way, as well as doing best you can to make those physical connections. I know that it's really hard right now, and especially now that we're back to level 1, having those pieces with where you're actually in the room physically with the students, that does help reduce that anxiety to a degree. As we are transitioning back to more face-to-face learning, remember, you don't have to completely abandon everything that you've done so far. And the tools that have been working for you for remote learning in level 2, they're still going to work for you here in level 1. So with that in mind, another reflection time. You've been using digital tools to reach out to those students who have been remote. Everyone started in level 2, elementary went back to level 1 sooner than secondary. But now that everyone's all back to level 1, how can you use some of those tools that you've been using to continue to engage your students in face-to-face classes? Furthermore, how can you use those tools to engage your learners on those distance learning Fridays, or on those e-learning Fridays? About 2 minutes to reflect and write. As before, I'll ask that when you're ready, share your thoughts in the chat if you are so inclined. And seeing a couple of comments about leveraging your LMS and students communicating via the LMS versus printed paper, getting them accustomed to that online environment regardless of whether they're face-to-face. Absolutely. They've got laptops, let's use them, right?
Yeah, Rod even points out that teachers are leveraging the LMS to keep consistency with what they're doing with the lessons to be prepared for when they do go back to level 2 or level 3.
If they go.
Right. Sorry. If they go back to level 2 or level 3.
Taking advantage of those online quizzing tools, absolutely. And I know that it's been a lot of work to build materials and build lessons in your LMSs right now, but guess what? Next year, you get to use those again. Taking advantage of Khan Academy, Alyssa. Awesome. Oh, yay, Cassandra. Take first test in Canvas this week. Let us know how that goes. Please do. Flipgrid. I'm running a session on Flipgrid later. So yeah, if you want to come, Molly, if you want to come in and just pop in if you feel like it. If you got one of the other sessions seems more your taste, by all means, don't feel like you're obligated to join me. All right. So in the interest of time, I am going to go ahead and move forward. I'm running a little late. Get going here, and I'm too lazy to stop. So in closing, notice that I am using my digital instruction strategy of chunking my lessons down. Thank you again for all of those comments in the chat box. Fantastic work. Building those student-to-student connections, I saw some of this coming up already, using the discussion boards, using the private messaging features within your LMSs for students to build relationships with you, the teacher, but also to build relationships with one another, giving them a chance to talk to each other in Zoom. And especially now that we're back to level 1, group assignments will be a little bit easier and they'll look a little bit different with that online component if you're taking advantage of those. And we've seen a couple of teachers using student-led tech support, helping to empower those learners to become more confident in their own technology skills so that they don't have to ask you so much. Chances are they've got a pretty good idea of how to do it. And if one student is not understanding, if they ask their peers, one of the other peers probably knows. And asking them to rely on each other, number one, takes the load off of you, and number two, helps build their own self-efficacy. So it's such a wonderful idea. Time to share using whatever software works best for you. I recently learned Jamboard, fantastic software. Padlet is now limited a little bit on how many Padlets you get, which is different from what it used to be, which is sad because Padlet's a pretty awesome program too. We do have a session later on about communicating with families. And we do want to reinforce that when you are building your schedules for those e-learning Fridays, make sure you're communicating that out to not only the students, but to the families as well, so that if parents need to get a hold of you, they've got either a time to get a hold of you individually, or they have a way to communicate with you. I do need to point something out about the tech support. We did have a parent tech support phone line, and the questions that they were getting were questions that they couldn't help with. Like parents were calling and asking about, hey, my son is in math 8, how does he do this problem? And the poor person in the tech department's like, and they had no way to help them. And so that is why that phone line was shut down. It's not because they weren't capable of answering questions. It's that 99 out of the 100 questions that they fielded were questions that were teacher level questions. So the process, if this hasn't already been communicated to you, it should have been, but if it hasn't already been communicated to you, students are being directed back to you, the teachers, for the first line of defense on tech support. most of the time it's something to do with a login, and most of the time it's something about getting the assignment submitted. And if they can't help you, or if they have an actual problem with their computer, like they get the blue screen of death, that's when you, the teacher, put in a work order, just like you would for your computer, except you use the student's computer name. So another point as well is to send them back to whoever's managing your technology in your building. Communication, less is more, making sure that you're not overwhelming and blowing people's emails up, and then also surveying parents for feedback. It's hard for us to know exactly how we're doing and what the perception is, so ask. It's okay to do that. And last reflection question. What questions do you have at this point regarding digital instruction and digital instruction techniques? And given a look at the sessions, which we have 4 rooms and 3 sessions with each room, so we've got a dozen sessions. Taking a look at those sessions, what do you hope to take away from those? Go ahead and take a moment to write about that.
And I shared a PDF of the sessions for those of you that don't have access to it in the chat. So if you want to take a little look at that to help you out.
Thank you, Nicole. All right, our next step for tonight, when you're done with that last reflection question, Zooms are, if you haven't already, we need to go ahead and open up the breakout rooms. And you should be able to join the breakout room of your choice. Now, when we look at that PDF, there's some colored bands. So you see like breakout room 1 has a blue colored band, and the general topic is K5 video creation. You're not beholden to one path. So if you look at that and you see effective video and effective instructional videos for the elementary level, and you want to go there to start with, absolutely, go ahead and drop into breakout room 1. And then if you decide you want to go to attendance options instead later, that's fine. You can do that for session 2 and then go back to a different one for session 3. You can move between the breakout rooms as you see fit. We just had those breakout rooms broken into those categories in case you wanted to have kind of a common thread across your evening's training. We will start those sessions at 5 o'clock, which is about 5 minutes from now.
And for those of you that are new to breakout rooms, if you don't see on your Zoom bar on the bottom of your screen, if you don't see breakout room, you are going to need to click on the 3 little dots, and it just means that your screen can't show that whole thing. And so then breakout rooms should become available to you there. If you click on breakout rooms and it does not give you join as an option, you are going to need to either chat and let Tara know where you want to go, or just wait, and everyone else will leave you here with the Zoom czar, Tara, and so you'll have that.
So can you guys see my screen right now with my breakout rooms list? Can you guys see that? Okay, so like I have the most recent version of Zoom installed on my laptop, and notice that I have the option to join any of these given breakout rooms. So if you don't have that, you'll need to update Zoom on your laptop. So what she was talking about with the 3 dots is if your window's kind of squished down, she's talking about those 3 dots right there.
We can't see it. Yep, there you go.
Okay. So like I don't have my window full screen here. I now have the 3 dots and I can join the breakout room of my choice. Or if I have the window full screen and I actually have the breakout room icon, same difference. Okay. All right, once you are in a breakout room, feel free to go ahead and take a few. Do you guys mind if we go ahead and push the schedule 5 minutes here so everyone has a chance to get to their rooms?
Yeah, and then it kind of gives everyone a little bit of a break, including us.
Including us. Okay.
So we will start promptly at 5:02.